This game is freaking hard! Hello everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. My name's Argonaut, and today we're going to take a look back at Cuphead, that charming 1930s cartoon-themed indie title that released back in 2017, that some fans consider to be the Dark Souls of platforming, including its development history, story, and gameplay, as well as my thoughts on it. But, before all that, if you end up liking this video and want to see more like it, feel free to click that subscribe button to keep up with the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And now, with that shameless promotion out of the way, on with the video. Originally developed by Studio MDHR, a Canadian indie developer founded by brothers Jared and Chad Moldenhauer. Ooh, I hope I didn't butcher that name. They originally attempted to make a game like Cuphead way back in the year 2000, but apparently lacked the tools to continue at the time, so they shelved the idea, up until the success of the indie game Super Meat Boy in 2010, which prompted them to give the game another try. Inspired by all the old-school Golden Age cartoons the brothers used to watch as children on VHS, you remember those? The brothers decided to base their game in that, while giving it a run-and-gun style, inspired by games like Contra and Super Mario Bros. The brothers initially struggled to get funding for Cuphead, and even went so far as remortgaging their homes to help secure funding for the game, until finally, a major turning point came for them when they partnered with Microsoft in 2014. By partnering with Microsoft, it helped them secure the funding to complete the game. Microsoft also promoted and marketed the game for them, and MDHR even got to keep their creative freedom over the project. But, in exchange, Cuphead had to become a timed exclusive for Xbox and PC. And with that being said, Cuphead was announced at E3 2014, RIP E3, and got a full release for Xbox and Windows on September 29th, 2017. And eventually got ported to PS4 on July 28th, 2020. The first time I ever played Cuphead was back in July of 2020, the very day it came out for the PS4, since, you know, PlayStation fanboy and everything. Due to some of the marketing, I saw it a couple years beforehand and was heavily anticipating it. Growing up, I was a huge fan of Mega Man. You've got to remember Mega Man, right? He's not too old for people watching this, right? Mega Man, the Blue Bomber? But, anyways, I bought it when it first came out to play with my girlfriend at the time, since she was into games like that, and it had co-op, which I thought it'd be a fun thing for us to do together. Funny enough, though, she enjoyed the game so much, she actually played and finished it without me. Then, I kinda lost all motivation to play it, and forgot about it. Up until about 2 years later when the DLC came out, and I decided to give the game another try, and realized just everything I missed out on. For the story of the game, Studio MDHR didn't want to make a damsel in distress type story. They wanted some type of story where Cuphead ends up getting himself into trouble. And that's exactly what they did. In this story, our heroes Cuphead and his brother Mugman wander into the wrong part of town and end up going to a casino owned by none other than the actual devil himself. After having a great run at the craps table, the devil makes a deal with them. If they win the next hand, they get all the loot in the casino. But if they lose, he gets to take their very souls. Cuphead, of course, takes that bet, and sure enough, he rolls the snake eyes. Now, instead of taking their souls, the devil ends up making a deal with the brothers. Go after and collect the souls of all the other runaway debtors within 24 hours and he'll spare them. And so, our heroes set off on their journey. Now, for the music of this game, Studio MDHR hired a composer named Christopher Madigan, and he composed the entire soundtrack himself. And every track was done with a live band, to be authentic for the times. There are a ton of behind-the-scenes videos out there showing the band in the recording studio, just doing their thing. And personally, I just freaking love the music of this game. This is truly the type of music where I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people that played the game had a few songs saved on their playlist. I mean, just listen to this track. So far, this probably has one of the best tracks to a game that I've heard in a while, being rivaled by only a couple of other games. Now, for the graphics of this game, Chad, one of the brothers that owned the studio, who came from a web design background, actually drew the backgrounds and character animations by hand, and painted the backgrounds with watercolors to give the game a more authentic 1930s look. They tried replicating as many techniques as they could that were used to make cartoons back in the day, and it shows. I can't even begin to imagine what a long and tedious process creating both the music and the graphics for this game must have been. But I'm so thankful that they went this route. The gameplay for Cuphead is pretty simple. You run, jump, and shoot, and you can also dash. Also, if you double tap the jump button, you're able to parry certain projectiles, and whenever you do that, it builds up a bar. You can either use that bar to fire off a more powered up version of your weapon, or you can save it up to use your super move. By finding these mausoleums all throughout the islands, you're able to unlock different super moves that you can freely swap out. There are also shops scattered all throughout the game where you're able to purchase new weapons to use along with different forms of dashing. There are some points where you have to fly in an airplane, but the controls are pretty much the same, except for you can't swap out your weapons with anything else, and in exchange for a dash, you're able to minimize your plane to make it easier to dodge incoming projectiles. The game mostly consists of you going around doing boss fights against the people on the debtors list, which, now that I think about it, isn't Cuphead kind of the bad guy here? He's like, literally working for the devil. He's collecting the souls of these people that probably did the same thing he did to save his own sorry mug. And these people are more or less just fighting back in self-defense. Is he really our hero? But moving on. Whenever you go into a boss fight, you can either set it to regular mode or simple mode. But just know, whenever you beat a boss on simple mode, it doesn't really count, and you'll have to go back and beat it on regular mode, with you being able to unlock expert mode after beating the game. And if you ever happen to die against the boss, which, spoiler alert, you will. A lot. The game shows you a progress bar of what phase of the fight you're in and just how close you were to the next phase or finishing the fight. Along with the boss fights, occasionally you'll see platforming levels called run and guns. These aren't actually mandatory to beat, but these are opportunities for you to find coins to use in the shop, and they also really test your platforming skills. And if you ever happen to die in these, which, again, spoiler alert, you will. You'll also see a progress bar of just how far you didn't get. Also, if you're able to clear a run and gun without killing any enemies, you'll get something called a pacifist rating. So, good luck with that one. Along with everything else, you're also able to play as Cuphead's brother Mugman, and even have another person play couch co-op with you if you want. Although, when you do that, the boss gets extra health, and both players deal less damage to compensate. And, just like in the old Contra games, you're also able to take a player's extra lives if you ever run out. Although, if the other player's anything like my older brother, doing it without asking could easily get you into a fight. After Cuphead was released, it went on to sell over 1 million copies within its first 2 weeks, and went even further to sell 2 million copies 2 months after its release. By the time it released on the PlayStation 4, it had sold over 6 million copies, making it a huge commercial success. Not to mention that it also got nominated for and won numerous awards, including Best Independent Game, Best Art Direction, and Best Soundtrack from the Game Awards in 2017. In 2018, 1 year after the game's initial release, Studio MDHR announced some new content for the game called The Delicious Last Course, but that's kind of a mouthful to say, so for the sake of saving time, we're just gonna call it DLC, and then they... Oh, wait, I see what they did there. Unfortunately, due to many delays due to long and difficult hand-drawing processes, as well as other things like, I don't know, say a global pandemic, the DLC got delayed all the way up until the year 2022, 5 years after the game's initial release. The DLC added new bosses, new charms and weapons, and even a new character, Miss Chalice, who's basically Cuphead on easy mode. She comes with a double jump, an invincibility roll, an easier way to parry with a parry dash, different supers, and she even gets an extra hit point. And as someone who wasn't the best at parrying in this game, I literally could not have beaten this game without her. I mean, seriously, I got stuck on the King Dice fight for like 2 weeks. The DLC went on to sell over 1 million copies within its first 2 weeks, and by the end of 2022, it had sold over 2 million copies, making it also another commercial success. Cuphead also went on to get an animated Netflix show in 2022 that ran for 3 seasons, and even got a book series about it. Unfortunately, after that, there have been no plans for Cuphead, and the studio hasn't released another game since. Although, from what I've researched, the creators have more or less said that they would like to do something new, but not with Cuphead. Although, on May 5th of 2025, on their official Twitter account, they put up a job posting for a senior Unity programmer. So, it looks like they may be announcing some type of new project sooner or later. Now, here are my pros and cons for Cuphead. With its hand-drawn style, it had a really unique look. The music for this game was amazing. The controls for this game felt super responsive, and by that I mean whenever you died, it felt fair. You couldn't truly blame the controls or anything for a death. You always blame yourself for making the mistake. The gameplay difficulty. I actually like that you learn through death in this game, and in this day and age, you don't get difficulty like this too often anymore. And it's such a euphoric feeling when you manage to beat a boss that you have been struggling with for who knows how long. But when you finally climb over that mountain, it's such a euphoric feeling. The dopamine just hits just right. The DLC. You can tell that they put just as much time and effort into the DLC as they did into the main game, and it didn't feel like it was simply tacked on for the sake of getting extra sales or money or anything. The price of the game. It was only $20 at the time, and the DLC was $7.99. I know that was the standard pricing for everything, but as a player, I felt like I got more than my money's worth, you know? And then on top of that, at this point you could probably pick up both the game and DLC together for under $10, but I feel like they truly could have charged a bit more for it than regular, and then they didn't. And now, here are the cons for the game for me, which there aren't really many. It was actually overall a really solid game. If I had any issues, I guess it would be this. You can't directly teleport to a boss fight, but you have to walk to each one. There's no quick way to get from each boss to another. You always have to walk through the island to get to the boss fight. It's just a really small complaint. I wish there was like a menu where you could just teleport automatically to the boss, or go right to fighting the boss without having to physically walk there on the map. And this last one is a really personal gripe, but for one of the boss fights, while you're fighting in a plane, in a cave, you get turned to stone for a bit, and it's unavoidable. This leaves you immobile, Now, if you aren't positioned in an ideal spot when it happens, you're gonna take unnecessary damage no matter what you do, from some of the rocks in the cave, and I just feel like that's a little bit unfair. But again, that's just a really personal gripe. In conclusion, Cuphead was an amazing and unique experience that shows just how good a game can be when everyone involved in making it is as passionate about what they're doing. If you haven't played it by now, please do yourself a favor and go out and give it a try. I can almost promise you that you won't regret it. And those are my thoughts about Cuphead. So, what did you think? Did you agree with me? Did you disagree? What was your experience with the game? Let me know in the comments section down below. I would really love to hear from you. And with that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.